The metallic clang of the bars echoed down the corridor of the Grand Plains Federal Penitentiary like a constant lament. Michael Thompson lifted his eyes from the small yellowed piece of paper he held in his trembling fingers. It was a faded photograph of Thunder Valley, his American quarter horse captured on one of the last happy days at his ranch. 6 years. 6 long years since his life had crumbled like a house of cards. Michael still remembered the smell of the earth moistened by morning rain, the happy neigh of Thunder when he saw him approaching the stables, the sensation of freedom that only galloping could provide. Now, his hands once calloused from hard work on the ranch were pale and weak, marked by time and injustice. "Thompson, you have a visitor," shouted the guard through the bars. Michael furrowed his brow. He hadn't received visitors for months. His ex-wife, Megan, had moved to New York right after the trial, taking their teenage daughter, Amy Claire, with her. His former partners and friends had simply disappeared, as if he were the carrier of a contagious curse. Walking down the corridor, Michael felt a tightness in his chest. In recent months, he had been facing health problems that the prison doctors couldn't diagnose with precision. Constant pain, extreme fatigue, and a persistent cough that kept him awake during the early hours. The penitentiary doctor had been clear. His condition was serious and required specialized care they couldn't provide there. In the visiting room, he found an elegant man in a gray suit with a penetrating gaze. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Henry Morgan, director of this institution. I know your medical situation has been worsening, and following protocols, I need to discuss some important matters with you." Michael nodded, already imagining where this conversation would lead. Dr. Morgan pulled out a folder and opened it carefully. "According to regulations, in cases like yours, we have an obligation to ask if there's anything specific you'd like to request. A last wish, let's say." Silence hung heavy in the air. Michael closed his eyes and instantly saw Thunder running through the verdant fields of his ranch. He remembered the day he found the young colt, still very young, injured near the river. He cared for him with his own hands, fed him with a bottle, spent sleepless nights in the stable. Thunder wasn't just a horse. He was his soul in animal form, his connection to everything that was once good in his life. "I want to see my horse," said Michael, his voice breaking. "Thunder Valley. He must be somewhere out there since everything was confiscated, that's all I ask." Dr. Morgan blinked several times, clearly surprised. "A horse? Mr. Thompson, that's quite an unusual request. In fact, we've never had a request like this before." "Doctor?" Michael leaned forward. "I lost my family, my ranch, my reputation, my health. All I have left are memories of when I was free, galloping across the fields with Thunder. If I'm going to leave this life, I want to remember what truly mattered." The director closed the folder and remained silent for a few moments. There was something in the sincerity of those words that touched him deeply. "I'll see what I can do. I can't promise anything, but I'll try to locate your horse." As he returned to his cell, Michael felt a strange mixture of hope and melancholy. Thunder represented everything he had lost, but also everything that still pulsed alive in his heart. Would the animals still remember him? Would he still carry the same nobility in his gaze? He lay down on the narrow bed and fixed his gaze on the peeling ceiling. Tomorrow, perhaps, he could discover if true bonds resist time and distance. For now, it was enough to dream of the wind on his face and the hypnotic rhythm of hooves beating on the earth. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. On the outskirts of Grand Plains, among small farms and ranches, was Hope Ranch, a modest animal rehabilitation center run by veterinarian Olivia Davis. At 32, with practical brown hair always tied in a ponytail and clothes stained with dirt, Olivia dedicated her life to animals that came to her, often from difficult situations. It was a typical working morning when her cell phone rang. Olivia wiped her hands on her apron and answered, not imagining that call would completely change her routine. "Dr. Davis? This is Dr. Henry Morgan, director of the Federal Penitentiary. You're caring for the quarter horse that was seized from Michael Thompson's ranch, correct?" Olivia's heart raced. "Yes, I've been taking care of Thunder for almost 6 years. Why? Are you asking?" "We have a delicate situation here. Michael Thompson has made a specific request, and we need your cooperation. May I visit you today to talk in person?" After hanging up, Olivia walked to the pasture where Thunder remained, isolated from the other animals. The horse was magnificent, shiny chestnut coat, flowing black mane, proud bearing that demonstrated all his noble lineage. But there was something in his eyes that always broke Olivia's heart, a deep sadness, a constant waiting. Since his first day at the ranch, Thunder had displayed behaviors that intrigued the veterinarian. He absolutely refused to accept any other rider. When they tried to approach him with a saddle or reins, he would rear up, snort, and become uncontrollable. Olivia was the only person who could care for him, and even then, she sensed that the animal merely tolerated her presence. "You're still waiting for him, aren't you, boy?" murmured Olivia, offering a carrot through the fence. Thunder approached slowly, took the food delicately, but his eyes remained fixed on the dirt road leading to the property, as if eternally awaiting the arrival of someone specific. Dr. Morgan arrived late in the afternoon, accompanied by 2 assistants. He was a serious man, but Olivia noticed an uneasiness in his gestures. They sat on the porch of the simple house overlooking the pastures. "Dr. Davis, what I'm about to tell you might seem strange," the director began. "Michael Thompson has serious health problems. The doctors don't know how much time he has left. His only request was to see his horse again." Olivia felt a lump in her throat. During all these years, she had researched Michael's case, read newspaper articles, followed the trial on television. Something always bothered her about the story. How could a man who showed so much love for animals, who built a solid reputation in agribusiness, have become involved in such dirty schemes? "Doctor, may I ask an indiscreet question?" Olivia hesitated. "Do you believe in his guilt?" Dr. Morgan remained silent for a few moments, observing Thunder in the pasture. "You know, Doctor, I've been running prisons for 20 years. I've met hundreds of inmates of all types. Michael is different. I've never seen someone maintain such dignity in such adverse circumstances. And there's something else." The director told her about the inconsistencies he had noticed in the process, about the expert who supposedly signed reports after his death, about details that didn't fit the timeline of events. "What impresses me," continued Dr. Morgan, "is that Michael never showed anger or revolt, just a deep sadness, as if he had lost something much greater than money or status. When he spoke about the horse, it was the first time I saw his eyes light up in years." Olivia looked again at Thunder. He never got over the separation. For 6 years he's been waiting for his owner's return. The loyalty of this animal is impressive. "So you agree to bring the horse to the penitentiary? It will be a supervised meeting with all security measures in place." "Of course I agree. But I have one condition." Olivia stood up, determined. "I want to meet Michael personally before the encounter. I need to understand what really happened between them to properly prepare Thunder." Dr. Morgan nodded. "Agreed. I'll arrange this meeting for tomorrow." That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. There was something about this story that awakened a protective instinct in her, not just for the horse, but for the truth she felt was hidden somewhere between the official versions and the reality of the facts. The visiting room at the penitentiary had a characteristic smell of disinfectant mixed with sadness. Olivia waited nervously, her sweaty hands holding a folder with photos of Thunder that she had specifically selected to show Michael. When the door opened and he entered, handcuffed and accompanied by a guard, she had to suppress a gasp of surprise. Michael. Thompson was different from the photos that had circulated in the media during the trial. The imposing man with broad shoulders and confident gaze had given way to someone visibly weakened, thinner, with graying hair and a worrying paleness. But when his eyes met Olivia's, she saw something that touched her deeply. Pure gratitude. "You're the doctor who's been taking care of my Thunder all these years?" Michael sat down with difficulty, his hoarse voice carrying contained emotion. "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I'm Olivia." She opened the folder and placed the first photos on the table. I brought some pictures of him. I thought you might want to see how he's doing." Michael's hands trembled as he touched the first photograph. It was Thunder running free in the pasture, mane to the wind, defined muscles in motion. A tear ran down the man's face, which he tried to hide by quickly wiping his eyes. "He's grown. So much. When he was taken from the ranch, he was still young, full of energy. Look how strong and beautiful he is." Michael held the photo as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "And is he doing well? Does he eat properly? Does he have space to run?" Olivia smiled, touched by the genuine concern. "He's physically perfect. But Mr. Thompson, I need to be honest with you. Thunder never adapted to the separation. In these 6 years, he's refused to accept any other rider. It's as if he were waiting for me," Michael completed, his voice breaking. "It was always like that. Since he was a colt, we developed a special connection. I saved him when he was just an abandoned foal with an injured leg. I cared for him day and night. In exchange, he gave me the purest thing that exists, unconditional loyalty." Olivia showed more photos, and with each image, Michael shared a memory. He talked about the mornings they galloped together across the fields, about how Thunder consoled him on difficult days, about the extraordinary intelligence of the animal that seemed to understand his feelings. "You know, Dr. Davis," Michael paused, looking directly into her eyes, "I've lost everything in this life. My wife abandoned me. My daughter doesn't speak to me anymore. My friends disappeared. My reputation was destroyed. But Thunder, he never doubted me." "Mr. Thompson, may I ask you a personal question?" Olivia leaned forward. "Did you really do the things you were accused of?" Michael was silent for long seconds, as if weighing each word. "Doctor, I am many things. I was ambitious, sometimes hard in business, made mistakes like any human being. But never ever would I do anything that could tarnish my family's name or harm innocent people." There was a sincerity in his voice that made Olivia believe him instantly. "Then why are you here?" "Because there are very powerful people who benefited from my downfall. My ranch was in a strategic region with valuable water resources. My company competed directly with large corporations. When you bother powerful interests, Doctor, anything can happen." Michael told her about the irregularities he had noticed in his own trial, about witnesses who changed testimonies overnight, about evidence that appeared in suspicious ways. "But who's going to believe a convicted man? My word is worth nothing." "It's worth something to me," Olivia said with conviction, "and it's worth something to Thunder, who never lost faith in you." At that moment, Dr. Morgan entered the room. "How's the conversation going?" "We've received authorization for the meeting tomorrow morning. It will be in the inner courtyard, with full supervision." Michael stood up with difficulty, clearly emotional. "Dr. Davis, how can I thank you for taking care of him all these years?" "No need to thank me. Anyone who loves animals as you do deserves this chance." Olivia shook his hand. "Tomorrow, when Thunder sees you, I'm sure it will be an unforgettable moment for both of you." As Michael was taken back to his cell, Olivia remained in the room, reflecting on everything she had heard. There was something deeply wrong with that conviction, and she was determined to discover the truth. The inner courtyard of the penitentiary was unusually busy for a Saturday morning. Guards circulated with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension, as they had never witnessed anything similar. Dr. Morgan personally supervised all preparations, making sure that security measures were rigorously followed. Olivia arrived early, bringing Thunder in an adapted trailer. The horse seemed restless during the entire trip, as if sensing something special. When descending from the vehicle, his nostrils dilated, sniffing the air intensely. Something familiar was near. "Easy, boy," murmured Olivia, firmly holding the reins. "Soon you'll understand why we came here." Sergeant Arnold Freeman was present to monitor the procedure, representing the institution's security. He was a heavy-set, middle-aged man with a graying mustache and rigid posture. He had provided the decisive testimony in Michael's trial, claiming to have seen him leaving the cooperative on the fateful night. When Michael was led to the courtyard, handcuffed and escorted by 2 guards, time seemed to stop. His legs were visibly shaking, not only from emotion but from the weakness he had been feeling in recent days. Dr. Morgan had insisted that a doctor accompany the meeting, concerned about his health condition. Thunder was about 20 meters away when he suddenly raised his head. His eyes met Michael's, and in that instant, 6 years of separation dissolved like fog in the sun. The horse neighed loudly, a sound that echoed off the courtyard walls like a cry of joy and recognition. "My boy," Michael whispered, tears flowing freely down his face. Olivia had to use all her strength to restrain Thunder, who was pulling at the reins with determination, trying to approach his owner. The animal pawed the ground, snorted and shook his head, showing an agitation that bordered on desperation. Can I approach him?" Michael asked the director, his voice breaking. Dr. Morgan hesitated but gave an affirmative signal. "Slowly, with the guards beside you." When Michael began walking toward Thunder, the horse instantly calmed down, as if all his anxiety transformed into pure concentration. With each step his owner took, Thunder stretched his neck, ears perked, eyes fixed on that face he had never forgotten. 3 meters away, something unexpected happened. Thunder shifted his gaze from Michael and focused intensely on Sergeant Arnold, who was observing the scene a few meters away. The animal's behavior changed drastically. His nostrils flared, his ears turned back in a sign of alert, and he began to snort loudly, pawing the ground aggressively. "What's happening?" asked Dr. Morgan, intrigued. Olivia had never seen Thunder react like this. The horse positioned himself protectively between Michael and the sergeant, arching his neck and showing clear signs of distrust and even hostility. "This is very strange," murmured Olivia. "Thunder is a docile horse. He's never shown aggression toward anyone." Sergeant Arnold stepped back a few paces, visibly uncomfortable. "I think the beast doesn't like uniforms," he tried to explain with a nervous laugh. But Thunder remained fixated on him, snorting and demonstrating behavior that intrigued all those present. Dr. Morgan observed everything with growing attention, a strange uneasiness taking over his thoughts. When they finally managed to calm the horse, Michael was able to approach. The moment his hand touched Thunder's muzzle was pure magic. The animal closed his eyes, rested his head on his owner's chest, and remained absolutely still, as if wanting to engrave that moment forever. "I knew you would wait for me," Michael whispered, his trembling hands caressing the horse's mane. "I always knew." Dr. Morgan continued to observe the peculiar reaction Thunder had shown toward the sergeant. There was something there he couldn't ignore. Animals, especially horses, have keen instincts for detecting danger or distrust. Why would Thunder react in such a specific way to only that person? The meeting lasted only 15 minutes, but it was intense enough to profoundly mark everyone present. When Michael was led back to his cell and Thunder to the trailer, the director remained in the courtyard, lost in thought. He had decided that, later that afternoon, he would personally review all the documents in Michael Thompson's case. Something, in that instinctive behavior of the horse, had awakened in him a suspicion he could no longer ignore. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. Dr. Henry Morgan spent the entire afternoon locked in his office, surrounded by stacks of yellowed documents. Michael Thompson's case was spread across his desk like a complex puzzle he was trying to solve for the first time. Thunder's instinctive reaction had planted a seed of doubt that was now rapidly germinating in his mind. It took only 2 hours to find the first glaring inconsistency. The expert report validating the incriminating signatures on the contracts was signed by Dr. Mark Austin Fields, dated September 15, 2018. Intrigued, Dr. Morgan called the Forensics Institute to confirm the professional's information. "I regret to inform you, Doctor," said the attendant after a few minutes of waiting, "but expert Mark Austin Fields passed away on July 12, 2018. It's impossible for him to have signed any document in September." The phone almost slipped from Dr. Morgan's hands. How had such a basic inconsistency gone unnoticed throughout the entire trial? He continued leafing through the documents with growing agitation, finding other irregularities, conflicting dates, blurred stamps, documents without proper sequential numbering. Meanwhile, in the city, a 28-year-old lawyer named Connor Mitchell was reading an article in the local newspaper about the unusual meeting at the penitentiary. Specializing in criminal case reviews and known for his passion for cases of injustice, Connor felt his professional instinct awakening. "Meeting between convict and horse raises questions about judicial process," read the headline. The article briefly described the animal's strange behavior towards Sergeant Arnold and mentioned that the penitentiary director had requested a review of the documents. Connor immediately called the penitentiary. "Dr. Morgan, I'm Connor Mitchell, a lawyer specializing in criminal case reviews. I read about the Michael Thompson case and would like to offer my help in analyzing the process." "Mr. Mitchell, what? A coincidence. I'm just now discovering serious irregularities in the documents. Can you come here today?" At Hope Ranch, Olivia also couldn't get Thunder's behavior out of her head. She decided to do her own research on the internet about the Michael Thompson case. She spent hours reading articles, analyzing testimonies, studying the chronology of events. What intrigued her most was discovering that Michael had always maintained an impeccable reputation. In agribusiness, consultants, suppliers, and former employees spoke of him as a man of integrity who would never get involved in illegal schemes. Why would someone like that change their character so drastically? By late afternoon, Connor arrived at the penitentiary and found Dr. Morgan visibly shaken. "Mr. Mitchell, in 20 years of running prisons, I've never seen such a quantity of irregularities in a single case." Together, they began to systematically catalogue each inconsistency. Besides the expert who signed after his own death, they found financial reports with dates that didn't coincide with the mentioned bank holidays, transactions that supposedly happened on weekends when banks were closed, signatures with evident graphic differences, and witnesses who drastically changed their testimonies between preliminary interrogations and the final trial. "This isn't just legal incompetence," said Connor, examining a series of documents. "This is deliberate falsification." Dr. Morgan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. "The worst part is knowing that an innocent man may be paying for something he didn't do, while the real culprits are free out there." At that moment, the phone rang. It was Olivia. "Dr. Morgan, sorry to bother you, but I discovered something interesting. I found the address of a former employee from Michael's ranch, a man named John Baptiste. He worked there for 15 years and was fired right after the conviction. I think he might have important information. Dr. Davis, can you pass that contact to us? We have a lawyer here who's helping us investigate the case." While noting the information, Connor felt the adrenaline rushing through his veins. "Dr. Morgan, I think we're facing something much bigger than we imagined. If Michael Thompson is really innocent, someone built a very elaborate trap to destroy him. And if we're right," Dr. Morgan responded gravely, "we need to act quickly. Michael's health is deteriorating rapidly. He may not have much time." The two men looked at each other, understanding the dimension of the responsibility they had. Assumed. This wasn't just about reviewing a judicial process. It was a race against time to save the life of a possibly innocent man. John Baptiste lived in a simple house on the outskirts of Grand Plains, where he raised chickens and maintained a small vegetable garden. At 53, the former employee of Michael's ranch showed in his face the signs of someone who had gone through difficult times. When Connor and Olivia arrived at his door, he received them with suspicion. "I don't know if I should talk about this," said John nervously, inviting them in. "I've already suffered too much because of this whole story." Olivia sat in the offered chair and looked directly into the man's eyes. "Mr. Baptiste, Michael may not have much time left. If you know something that could help him, it's our moral obligation to speak up." John sighed deeply and walked to the window, looking out at the yard. "I worked 15 years on that ranch. I knew Michael when he was still young, taking over his father's business. He was a fair, honest boss. He would never do the things he was accused of." Connor leaned forward. "Are you certain of that?" "Absolutely certain. On the night they say the fraud at the cooperative happened, Michael was at the ranch with me. We stayed up late fixing the fence on the north pasture because the cattle had broken through the posts. I remember perfectly because the next day my wife complained that I got home very late." Olivia felt a chill. "Did you say this at the trial?" John lowered his head, ashamed. I was never called to testify, and when I approached Michael's lawyers to tell them, they said they didn't need my testimony. Connor frowned. Something was very wrong. Who were these lawyers? Mr. Sebastian Myers was the main one. Well-dressed man, imported car. Said he had everything under control. John paused as if weighing his words. But there was something strange. A few days after I spoke with him, I received an unexpected visit. What kind of visit? Olivia asked. Two men in suits. They didn't properly identify themselves, but made it clear that it would be better for me not to get involved in the case. They said I could have problems if I insisted on giving my testimony. Connor and Olivia exchanged glances. Did you know them? Never seen them before, but one of them had a familiar manner. Later I discovered he was Sergeant Arnold's cousin, the one who testified against Michael. The revelation landed like a bomb. Connor immediately noted everything in his notebook. Mr. Baptiste, would you agree to repeat this information officially? We can request protection. While they were talking, Olivia's cell phone rang. It was Dr. Morgan with a tense voice. Dr. Davis, I need you all to come urgently to the penitentiary. Michael took a turn for the worse during the night and was admitted to the infirmary. Also, we've received something that could change everything. On the way to the penitentiary, John agreed to accompany them, finally decided to tell the whole truth. I can't live with this weight on my conscience anymore, he said. If Michael dies unjustly, I'll never forgive myself. At the penitentiary, Dr. Morgan received them with a grave expression. Michael is very debilitated. The doctors think he may not hold out much longer, but we have an important development. He led them to his office, where a recorder sat on the desk. We received this last night. Someone left it at the front gate, without identification. He pressed play. A male voice, slightly distorted, came from the device. Michael Thompson. He's innocent. It was a setup to protect important people. I know because I participated. I can't live with this guilt anymore. Michael's land was of interest to politicians in the region. Sergeant Arnold was bought. I have proof, but I need guarantees of protection before coming forward. The silence in the room was deafening. John was pale. My God, so that was it. I always suspected there was something bigger behind it all. Connor was euphoric. Dr. Morgan, this changes everything. We have inconsistencies in the documents, a witness who can confirm Michael's alibi, and now this audio. We can request an immediate review of the case. I'm already working on it, replied the director, but we need to be quick. Michael may not have much time. At that moment, a guard entered hurriedly. Dr. Morgan, the doctor needs to speak with you urgently. It's about inmate Michael Thompson's condition. They all headed to the infirmary, where they found Michael in a bed, visibly weaker than the day before. Even so, when he saw Olivia, he tried to smile. Doctor, how's my thunder? He's good, Mr. Thompson, and soon you'll be together again, galloping free across the fields. Olivia gently held his hand. I'm sure of it. Michael closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, allowed himself to dream of freedom. He didn't know that, at that exact moment, several people were working tirelessly to transform that dream into reality. Michael's condition was deteriorating rapidly. During the night, he had suffered a severe respiratory crisis that made the doctors transfer him to the Grand Plains Correctional Hospital. Dr. Morgan walked nervously through the corridors, divided between his institutional duty and his growing conviction of the prisoner's innocence. Connor had worked all night, preparing a habeas corpus petition based on all the discovered irregularities. At 6 in the morning, he filed the document with the Court of Justice, requesting maximum urgency due to Michael's critical condition. Mr. Mitchell, Olivia called with a tense voice, I discovered something important. Remember they mentioned that Michael's land interested politicians? I researched and found that just 3 months after his conviction, the entire area was purchased by a company called Agro Investments, LLC. And so? Connor asked, still organizing the legal documents. The company belongs to State Representative Robert Winters and businessman Marcus Bradley. They paid a price well below market value, because the land was in judicial proceedings. Connor stopped what he was doing. Olivia, that's more than enough reason for a conspiracy. They directly benefited from Michael's conviction. Meanwhile, John Baptiste had decided to seek out other former ranch employees, hoping to find more witnesses. He found Mary Grace, who had worked as a housekeeper in the main house for 10 years. "John, good to see you," Mary hugged him. "How are you? I know you were also affected when they closed the ranch." "Mary, I need to ask you about the night of September 15th, 2018. Do you remember anything special?" Mary thought for a few moments. "Of course I remember. It was the night Amy Claire had her birthday. Michael organized a small party at the ranch, just for close family. He spent the whole night there taking care of the preparations, talking with the guests. He only left the party after midnight, when you and he went to fix that fence." John felt his heart race. "Mary, did you tell this to anyone during the trial?" "Nobody asked me anything. I thought it was strange because I always thought this information could help Michael." John immediately called Connor. "We have another witness. Michael was at a birthday party at the ranch on the night of the supposed crime. Mary Grace can confirm. At the hospital, Michael alternated between moments of consciousness and fainting. During one of the lucid moments, Dr. Morgan approached his bed. "Michael, I know you're weak, but I need to tell you something important. We've discovered serious irregularities in your case. There's a real possibility of a review." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "Doctor, I always knew the truth would come out someday. I just don't know if I'll have time to see it." "You will, Michael. We'll fight for it." At that moment, Dr. Morgan's cell phone rang. It was an anonymous call. "Dr. Morgan, I'm the person who left. The audio at the penitentiary. I need to speak with you personally. I have more evidence." "Who are you?" "I was Michael's partner for several years before selling my share of the company. I participated against my will in the scheme to incriminate him. I can't live with this guilt anymore, especially knowing he might not survive." Dr. Morgan felt a mixture of hope and urgency. "Where can we meet?" "In the parking lot of the hospital where Michael is hospitalized. In 1 hour I'll be in a silver Civic, but come alone." After hanging up, Dr. Morgan immediately called Connor. "The person from the audio wants to come forward. They're bringing more evidence." "I'm going to meet them." "Dr. Morgan, don't go alone. It could be dangerous. We don't have a choice. Michael might not make it through the night." An hour later, Dr. Morgan was in the parking lot when a man of about 40 approached. He was thin, nervous, with deep circles under his eyes. "Doctor, my name is Albert Sanders. I was a minority partner in Michael's company. When he began to disturb powerful interests in the region, they approached me offering a lot of money to help destroy him." Albert handed over a folder full of documents. "Here are the real contracts, conversations I recorded as insurance, proof of payments made to Sergeant Arnold, and even to the lawyer who was supposed to defend Michael." Dr. Morgan quickly leafed through the documents, incredulous. "Why are you doing this now?" "Because Michael was a good man who didn't deserve this, and because I can't live anymore knowing that an innocent man might depart this life, carrying a guilt that isn't his." Albert continued. "Representative Winters and businessman Bradley orchestrated everything. They wanted Michael's land at any cost. They bribed witnesses, falsified documents, bought the silence of key people." At that moment, Dr. Morgan knew they finally had the necessary evidence to free Michael. The question now was whether they could do it in time to save not only his freedom, but his life. The Texas Court of Justice had never moved a case so quickly. With the new evidence presented by Connor, the testimony of Albert Sanders, John Baptiste and Mary Grace, plus the documentary inconsistencies discovered by Dr. Morgan, the duty judge had no choice but to decree the immediate release of Michael Thompson. At 6 o'clock on a rainy Monday morning, Michael received the news still in his hospital bed. Dr. Morgan entered the room with a smile he couldn't contain, followed by Connor, who carried the official documents. "Michael, you're free. Completely free and cleared of all charges." Michael needed a few minutes to process the information. 6 years of unjust imprisonment, humiliation, loss of everything he loved, came to an end in that moment. Tears rolled down his thin face as He held Dr. Morgan's hand. "And Thunder? Can I see him now?" Olivia, who had been waiting outside, entered the room. "Mr. Thompson, Thunder is in the hospital parking lot. I thought you might want to see him as soon as possible." Though debilitated, Michael insisted on going to the parking lot in a wheelchair. When the hospital doors opened and he saw Thunder waiting beside the trailer, the horse immediately raised his head and neighed loudly, as if announcing to the world that his owner had returned. "My boy." "Now we're truly free," Michael murmured, extending his hand to touch Thunder's muzzle. The horse approached delicately, rested his head on Michael's chest, and remained there, as if wanting to console him for all the years of suffering. It was a moment of pure emotion that deeply touched everyone present. In the days that followed, while Michael physically recovered in a private hospital, the real culprits were arrested one by one. State Representative Robert Winters and businessman Marcus Bradley were indicted for racketeering, corruption, and document falsification. Sergeant Arnold confessed to receiving bribes to give false testimony. Attorney Sebastian Myers was also arrested for actively participating in the conspiracy, sabotaging Michael's defense. Albert Sanders, in exchange for his cooperation with justice, received a reduced sentence and was placed in a witness protection program. 2 weeks after his release, Michael was strong enough to be taken to Hope Ranch, where he finally could ride Thunder again. The moment he mounted his horse after 6 years of separation was pure magic. Thunder galloped across the fields with an energy he hadn't shown for a long time, as if he too had regained his freedom along with his owner. "Olivia," said Michael, dismounting after a ride, "how can I thank you for taking care of him all these years?" "No need to thank me. You taught me that true loyalty has no expiration date." Michael decided to remain in Grand Plains for a few months while he fully recovered. Connor became not just his lawyer, but a close friend, helping him rebuild his life and reputation. The story of Michael and Thunder became nationally known, inspiring others to fight against injustice and never give up on the truth. Dr. Morgan implemented new protocols at the penitentiary to prevent similar cases from going unnoticed. John Baptiste was rehired to care for the small rural property that Michael acquired on the outskirts of Grand Plains. Mary Grace returned to work as his housekeeper, and together they rebuilt on a smaller scale the life they had lost. On a sunny afternoon, 6 months after his release, Michael was riding Thunder across the fields when he stopped on a hill and contemplated the horizon. His daughter Amy Claire, who had reconciled with him, would arrive the next day to visit. His ex-wife Megan had publicly apologized and expressed her regret for having doubted him. "Thunder," said Michael, caressing the horse's mane, "we lost 6 years, but we gained something much more valuable, the certainty that truth always prevails and that true bonds withstand any storm." The horse neighed softly as if agreeing, and together they contemplated the sunset, finally free, finally at peace, finally where they always should have